Welcome to episode 25 of the Oso Spurs podcast, where we have a full house tonight. How are you, Si? Let's start with you.
Tip top, mate, and slightly relieved that the season's actually finished.
I think we all are. Deej, how are you feeling?
I'm good and more than slightly relieved that the season's finished.
Yeah. And welcome back. We've missed you the last couple
Thank
of
you.
weeks.
Thank
Jonny,
you.
how are you, man? You're on mute, mate. Go on, Jonny. Start again. How are you, mate?
I'm really good. I'm like buzzing. I'm looking forward to next season already after that demolition of Leeds. I think it's showed us what we've got to look forward to next season. It's going to be great.
Have you got an IT course set up for the summer?
Got an IT course. I'll be taking an IT course by the end of the summer. That's the ambition. Like that mute button is a bit of a tricky one, but I feel I can do it.
Very good. Very good. We'll get you there. And Stu, last but certainly not least, how are you, sir?
I'm great. I'm also ecstatic that the season is over and our weekends are no longer to be ruined.
And that's where we've got to start, right? It's finally over. It's finally over. We were made to sit through those last 10 games of the season with knowing nothing was going to change and we were going to have to wait for it all to end, but it's finally over. And actually, it wasn't too bad at the end, was it, guys? Like, more, we only threw away 9 points with the Lucas Moura experiment in European football so he could have that moment. But the fourth time lucky, it paid off and he got carried off the pitch. That was a nice moment. And it was a really good performance against a Leeds side who needed to win, to be fair. And I think that's nice for Mason as well to sign off from his caretaker role with that. But yeah, go on, Si. You're nodding, mate. What did you make of it?
I was just thinking about the Mora thing, and I was thinking about, we talk a lot about stats, we talk a lot about XG, we talk a lot about big chance and that. And for once, we really exceeded our XG in this game. We took all three of our big chances. And I was just then thinking about XG and how controversial it is. Mora's goal, when does the XG start? Does it start when it picks it up on the byline? Because it's almost like an XGometer that all the way round to 1 until he hits the goal line, and then it's 100% an XG. So, pleased for him. Listen, I thought we played some nice football in that game. We knocked it around quite nicely. There's some players there, but Leeds, my God, they're a bad side, aren't they? I mean, they are truly awful. And luckily I was sat in the pub with 4 Leeds supporters, which was nice. But yeah, absolutely awful side. And we took them apart at times, and they look what they are, relegation fodder. And if they make us look that good, then they really are bad. But nice sunny day, end of season, players playing without any fear, and we knocked it around all right. And I tell you what, there's a player there in Porro on that right wing. I think if you keep him away from some defensive responsibilities, he's got some. I think he's got some potential there. If depending who we get in, he could even play sort of a winger on the wide three. I think
He is definitely a winger, probably.
Well, he's more. If you're talking wing back, he's more wing than back, right?
Oh yeah, he's barely any back.
He's barely back. So yeah, I mean, enjoyed the game. Nice day. Yeah, a couple of beers. It was all right.
Yeah, very good. Go on, Dejan. You finish off what you were saying there. What did you make of it? Good to have you back.
I think, first of all, I just am going to extend a warm thank you to Ryan Mason for falling on the grenade that is Tottenham Hotspur at the end of the season after sacking a manager for the second time. It really, if you look at his results without knowing context, it does not look good. But from what we know, from the performances that we put in before Mason, specifically with Stellini, and after Mason, I think Mason has done a fantastic job. I obviously don't want him as our manager. I think he's got a bit to learn, but I would love to see him go manage some League One championship side, and I don't know, maybe go manage abroad somewhere and come back and manage us someday, because I do think that there is a manager in there. I think that a lot of the games that he has managed for us he's made changes. He's had tactical ideas that haven't always worked, but at least we're different. And I have to applaud him for trying. I don't think anyone could have gotten a tune out of a back four that comprises the two center backs being Sanchez and Longley for all intents and purposes. He was kind of painted into a corner with all of the injuries that we've had in key positions. And I think that for what he was given, he did a pretty good job. And honestly, I was surprised that we came out looking like we did. So credit to him for getting them fired up for one more game, I guess.
Yeah, I do agree. I think it was impressive that they actually went out and gave it something with so little to play for. It was maybe they were just really excited and that it was finally coming to an end, and we can all have a nice reset. Stu, and finish with you. With just for context, we have lost Jonny to another IT malfunction of his, but hopefully he'll be back soon. But Stu, yeah, over to you.
Yeah, I think I haven't seen the XG for the game, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was closer than the result, because I thought they had quite a few chances that they didn't put away, which, kind of underlines Si's point that they're really shite. I mean, they couldn't finish their dinner. I mean, it was appalling. And I fear for them next season, because getting out of the championship's not easy. And they're going to be losing some key players. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. What was the reason for Romero officially being out? Does anyone know?
He's recovering from an injury. I think he probably would have played if we were playing for top four, because I know he's playing for Argentina, which is
2 weeks.
I know people are kicking off over that, but like realistically, he was probably like a 50-50, and it's the thought process for us is, well, we play him, we win the game, we're playing relegation fodder, even if they are playing for something. But if we play him and he gets injured and it's like a 6 to 9 month thing, we have enough of those.
Yeah.
It may as well play it safe.
Yeah, makes sense. I do think that Porro has shown that perhaps he could cover the departure of Lucas going forward. We've got Spence coming back, so that could be the right back up to Emerson. Lucas finishing on a high was lovely, but thanks for Amsterdam, but see you later.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there really was that. Apart from that, really much to take away from the result. Just thank goodness it's over, and we can complain and stress about not having a manager and a director of football for the next couple of weeks.
And Jonny, welcome back, mate. Just going to throw you straight in there. We were just discussing the what we thought of the Leeds game, and it's over to you, mate. And you're on mute again, sir.
Glad to mute. The mute button is having
I just think this is employed. You and Jim have been talking before. You do the on mute, and I'll do the you're on mute, and it'll be
I'm
well
in charge
funny.
of your mute
It'll
button.
be well funny.
I have host controls. Don't worry, Jonny. I got your back, mate.
Yeah, cheers, pal. I enjoyed the game. I thought we played. No, it was good, but it's like those. I was ready for the Brentford game to be a bit like that. It's like the Liverpool 4-4 with Southampton the other day as well. Like, you get these stupid games at the end of the season. I know, obviously, our game was very one-sided, really, but like it just has that. When nothing really, I know what mattered for Leeds, but it didn't really matter for us. I was very pleased. I know that other people would disagree with me, but I'm pleased that we came 8th and not 7th. Yeah, it was Kane was amazing, wasn't he? Like Kane put an incredible performance. Paro was. I have no idea what you guys just said, actually, obviously, because I was trying to get my Wi-Fi working. Paro was brilliant going forward. Obviously, brilliant goal. But he was looking really lively. But he's not a defender, clearly. And they didn't really test us. They had a few shots, I suppose, but it was just like. It was great to see more getting that. We switched over to the Everton game for the last 15 minutes because there was a lot riding on that, and really hoping that whoever they were playing, can't remember, Bournemouth, wasn't it? Really hoping Bournemouth was going to relegate Everton. That's what I was hoping was going to happen. So I didn't see the Moore goal live, and I saw it come up on the phone. I couldn't believe that he actually got the goal 90+5, and I was delighted, and really nice to see him getting lifted like that. I know he's like wound us all up a lot. But it's nice for him because he clearly loves Spurs, and it's lovely for him to get that sort of finale. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, it's been a hell of a lot better under Mason than it has been under the other lads before. Let's be honest. It's a pity that he didn't get the gig with the 10 games rather than Stellini. But yeah, it was enjoyable. Leads are shit, and they've got absolutely nothing
They
up front.
deserve to go down.
Really
I
bad.
saw on social media they were like adamant that we would all secretly be gutted to see them go because they brought so much excitement to the Premier League, which is maybe under Bielsa they brought something decent, but yeah,
They were. I liked watching them under Bielsa and even kind of under Marsh, but once they got rid of Marsh, they signed their death warrant. Like,
yeah,
they were spiraling already under Marsh, so I understand why they sacked him, but they didn't work.
Did you guys really want Everton to go down rather than Leicester?
I wanted Leicester. I
wanted
Leicester all
Leicester.
day.
Oh, Leicester, 100%.
Yeah,
no, nothing
Johnny,
really against
no.
Everton. Just funny to see
No,
big
Everton.
clubs go down, isn't it? So on the kind of topic of next season, I do want us to quickly talk about debunking the myth that Ange is some kind of cop-out, cheap, crappy option of a manager, and also the fact that despite what social media and our own aggregators are trying to do and create a storm around every manager in the world rejecting us, no one has rejected us except for Slot, and that wasn't even a rejection, really. You could, even if you took that as a rejection, no one else rejected us. Everyone's still on the cards, and why our own fans are throwing the club under the bus to drive this narrative. But before we do that, we're just so lucky to have Harry Kane, aren't we? Like, man, even if it's, if next season's our last season with him, we've got to soak in every second of that man. He is special.
He is really. I love Harry Kane. I'm gonna take this moment. It may sound like I'm bashing him, but I'm not. I'm gonna push back on the narrative that we'd get relegated without him because it's.
Of course we don't.
I'm not gonna begin to argue that point. But man, oh man, what a player he is. We will survive without him. This is kind of the history of Tottenham in a way. We have our brilliant players and they move on one way or another. I mean, we've kept him longer than I honestly probably thought we would have. I thought he was gone the summer where he was walking the golf course. I thought he would walk the golf course and walk straight all the way up to Manchester, but didn't end up happening. So I'm glad we've gotten to see him as long as we have. And if this was, it didn't really feel like the last game. The game the game before that summer, the summer saga. He felt like he was saying goodbye. I didn't feel that in this game, nor the last home game. So I'm less concerned, I guess, especially because I'm fairly confident he's not going to go to Madrid, even though that's kind of the rumor of the day. There's no way he leaves being that close to Shearer.
No, not in a million years, mate. Not in a million years.
There's no way on earth he does anything but, realistically, I just don't think we're going to sell him, and whether that's the right or wrong decision, Stu, I know you have a strong opinion on this, and I kind of do align with you that it just seems crazy to walk away from £100 million. But anyway, that's a different thing. Any logical person in his shoes goes, I'm going to sit it out and let's see what offers come on the table when I'm a free agent, because he will be inundated with offers and he will have all the power in his contract negotiations with us as well.
I think that's all upside for him, Jim.
Yeah.
He's got so he has another season to see how things might progress with us. If we get a good progressive manager and we see the team moving forwards from the last year, who knows? He might even sign a new contract with us. I could see that happening as well. If we get the right manager in and he gets the right vibe, gets the right feeling, he could even sign a new contract with us. But he holds all the cards next summer.
Yeah.
All the cards, because then he can command the wages, the signing on fee, everything that goes along with that. They're all in his hands. And for a guy, what is it? That's the second time he's got 30 plus in a season, 30 or 30 plus in a season. He didn't win the Golden Boot either time, did he?
No,
I think
only 8 players in history have scored 30 goals in the Premier League.
Yeah, and they all won the Golden Boot, I think.
Yeah, and he's done it twice. The other ones as well. Shearer did it twice.
Yeah.
and like it was Andy Cole, Ronaldo, and Robin van Persie.
Yeah.
I think were the other ones. I might be missing someone,
Yeah.
but considering every team that did that pretty much won the title.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Kane did a team that came 8th.
Yeah.
That is
So
that's obscene to do that.
if you're going to then do the balancing and do the weighting, his 30 goals for Spurs are better than the 36 that Haaland's got for City.
Of course, Kane would have scored 36 in that City side easily, and a
He
bit
would
more.
have scored 50.
And it's just amazing. And I think that was the 6th last game of the season that he scored. Well, the last 6 seasons, now he's scored in every last game of the season for the last 6 seasons.
That is mental,
Isn't it?
So I have another question then for Stu and Stu, and I'll ask Johnny the same as well. If Kane didn't exist, who would our player of the season have been?
That's a pretty good question considering nobody pretty much is holding their hand up. I would give it to Emerson for coming back from being absolutely slated and actually being one of our better players by the end of the season. That would be my vote.
Okay.
Go on, Johnny. What about you, mate? Who would be your player of the season?
Yeah, I'm surprised that Stu said that because I thought I was going to be an outlier. Because I agree. I think I would also give it to Emerson Royal because I remember how shocking the pre-World Cup Emerson was, which is kind of like what the Emerson of last season was, and how I felt about him, and how the people around me in the stadium felt about him, and the pelters he took, like almost Evanson Sanchez level of pelters, and I have such admiration for that guy because like how he rode that and how he just got his head down, worked his ass off, and like kept enough belief in himself to come through that storm and still like also like have this desire to perform for Spurs, and those fans who were complete tossers getting on their own players' back. Like the Sanchez treatment was shocking. It was worse than that game, whenever that was a month or so ago. But Royal's taken that week after week for a very long time. He's come back and he's like really turned it around. And he's probably after Kane. Like if you're missing a player, I generally would think in terms of the impact it might have on the result, like missing him when we did miss him for a few weeks not so long ago. Like it was so good to get him back. It's insane to actually say that. And I think just as much for his mental strength and also for his loyalty to the club and his he just started getting on with it. He's not looking for any kind of particular, gratitude or glory or anything like that. It's not like he's not kind of saying I told you so or anything like that. He's just like he loves football. He's getting his reward now, and there isn't anyone I think that's been consistently good enough to make him a stupid choice.
Yeah.
So because everyone else has been so inconsistent. On that basis, I think he deserves to be our second best player of the season.
And I think the other thing that really made me smile with Emerson was when his old man started talking about Real Madrid, he just went, "Shut up, Dad."
Yeah,
How to do it.
He just went, "Shut up, Dad. I'm here. Shut up. Don't do this."
He seems
he nearly scored a goal the other day with a header. That was in the Brentford game, wasn't it? And then he did score.
He had one cleared off the line. He had one cleared off the line against Brentford,
He scored
didn't he?
against City.
Yeah.
In that
City, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That was
so.
Weird.
He did, and he nearly got. Did he get one or did he get two in that game? He nearly got another one, didn't he? Just before half time.
Because it was Kulu and Emerson, and then we decided to not show up in the second half.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of roughly when he started to turn, wasn't it? It was kind of January time. I don't know. I think if he was a kid in my class, and like you get a kid in your class who's like a complete messer, and they're just really not producing the goods time after time, and you just think they don't have it in them, and they like prove you wrong without like calling you out. It's like it's just really impressive on a human level. I think It's nice. There are some people who are actually giving him the respect he deserves.
He could easily put his middle finger up to our fan base and say,
Totally.
"Told you so, you arseholes."
Totally.
Look at that. But yeah, he seems a bit bigger than that, and he's just out there to prove himself. So fair play to him. Do you, Si and Deej, do you agree with Stu and Johnny then?
I don't necessarily disagree because I think they're good points, but I would also throw, given that Kane's the only one that's done it for the whole season, you've got to look at players that have performed for half a season, whether they've turned it round or. So I'd throw Bentancur in there. Look how much we missed him when he got injured. I think that showed how important he was to us first half of the season. So I think he'd be in the mix there. If we're going to go for sort of like a short list, I think Bentancur would definitely be on the short list. I think Emerson is in with a great shout because I think the two, Stu and Johnny, make some really good points there because the character that the guy showed was great. But Bentancur was our midfield maestro, our Rolls Royce, all of the superlatives that we used at the start of the season, and that was a massive miss, especially when Basuma got injured the weekend after the transfer window closed. How's your luck, lads? Jesus.
Oh, I remember that when we got the headline, Tottenham fully healthy.
Bang,
2 weeks later.
Oh gosh, yeah, I forgot about that.
What a great time that was.
Just
the best of times.
Unbelievable. Only to us, eh? Only to us.
Yeah.
So, Deej, go on, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, I think I agree with Si. I think I would throw Bentancur in there. I love the shout of Emerson because I don't know. I mean, obviously, I have struggled to like Emerson, but I don't think I've ever fully been like an Emerson hater. He's always just been a defensive player, and we tried to make him cross the ball. He can't do that. He just can't do that. He can do other things. He can do other things pretty well, as we've seen. He's a pretty good right center back, if he needs to be. And honestly, if we end up with a manager who is more experimental, he can play both right back and right center back. Probably not like center back and a back four, but I think that there is definitely a spot for him on this team. It's just not in the opponent's half. It's in ours.
Yeah,
he can stay there,
which is fine. He doesn't try to be anything else. Well, we tried to force him to be something else, but it does go to show how our season was fucked because our best player, Kane, fine, he's fit, but then our second and third best player both, have season-ending injuries at the most crucial part of the season. It was just all downhill from there.
And just on the all downhill, you still realize we were one Richarlison header away from finishing sixth.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
We did. Yeah, it was.
So Jim, who's your player? Tiebreaker.
I would go for Bentancur. I think he was our most just. Royale for his his mental aptitude, but I think he did have a shit start to the season. Not that he wasn't trying, but he was just trying to be something he wasn't, and we were forcing him to do that. Whereas Bentancur just picked up where he left off last season and was consistently brilliant up until he snapped his ACL. Yeah. So next, and Johnny, we'll let you have this little monologue about this one because it's a topic close to your heart. I know Ange is one of the managers we've been linked with, and we've done a pod on him before, and it's on our Twitter page. You can see the clipped 10-minute part about Ange and why he's potentially a fantastic option. Like, he's a super high intensity front foot manager. And when he went to Celtic, everyone kind of said, oh my God, who's this guy? Why the hell have we got some dude from Australia? They didn't know how to play football. And now they absolutely love him and don't want to see him go. But Johnny, I want to give you a chance to maybe talk a little bit about Ange and where your hood's at, because I think you're quite sick of hearing, as someone who follows the SPL and also the Premier League really closely.
Yeah, I think the point you made there is really, really important. I think when you look at the situation now where he's almost become a frontliner, I know like a certain Northern Irish fella is looking good with the bookies, but I don't want to be dwelling on that. I don't think any of us want to be dwelling on that potential coming true. So no, I think Ange is at the moment, unless the Nagelsmann prospects kind of start to rekindle a little bit. I think Ange probably as good an option as we've got. And I do remember mentioning him right back at the beginning when we were looking for a new coach, because yeah, like I said, with my familiarity with Scotland, and it's like, I suppose I remember Scott, who was on the pod, and obviously he's big Celtic supporter. He used to be a season ticket holder at Parkhead, and I remember taking the piss out of him whenever Ange was appointed, because they'd gone through a bit of a Tottenham-esque dance around lots of candidates, and Eddie Howe was actually really close to joining Celtic that time when Ange eventually came in. And I'd never heard of Ange. Just like, he's Australian and he's been in Japan. Okay, that's amazing. What such credentials! And then he came in and they got knocked out of the Champions League in the qualifier stage. So it looked like, oh dear, here we go again. And Rangers had just kind of come back from their abyss when they'd been chucked down to the bottom tier of Scottish football. So they'd come back up into the SPL and won the SPL. So there was a lot of pressure because Celtic had been going for the 10 in a row, and Celtic had stopped that from happening, which is a really big deal because both Celtic and Rangers have done 9 in a row in their history, and no one's ever done 10 in a row. So that was actually huge. So he came in when there was a lot of there was a lot of pressure or a lot of criticism on Celtic, and for them to come up with a response. And Ange pretty quickly got over that very initial setback, and obviously rode the unpopular kind of reaction of the Glasgow faithful. And it's like your Newcastles and your Liverpools, working class, really big football city where it's like life and death, and being a Celtic manager is an insanely big job. And I know that people who maybe, it's like anything, if you don't know nothing about Argentinian football, I know they're passionate about it, right? But I'm not gonna pretend I know anything about Boca Juniors. So anyone who wants to judge the SPL on the basis of the fact that it's a 2-horse league is being, in my opinion, really disrespectful to a country that has got a really strong pedigree football and has actually got a national team that's on the up too. And so anyway, I digress slightly, but Ange has kind of come in there working in a city where football is huge, where that rivalry is massive, where there was a lot of pressure on him, and he very, very quickly won the fans over and won the team round and got them playing the kind of football that they expect. And the Celtic tradition and the Celtic expectation of supporters, I think, is very, very similar to Tottenham. Growing up in Scotland, watching Celtic was a bit like watching your Liverpools in the 1980s, and Spurs when they had their good teams. You're playing the champagne football. The ball is flowing up the pitch. It's like fast paced, relentless, entertaining football. A lot of heart and some real technical prowess as well. So I'm not pretending that the footballers that Ange brought in, he's obviously brought in a lot of players from Japan and have been really successful there. I'm not pretending that those players he could bring them with him to Tottenham. We've seen the likes of Matoma obviously doing a superb job in Brighton recently. So I think it's another one of those things like, oh yeah, like Australian manager, Japanese lads, like we've got our own South Korea and all this. People need to cop on a bit. I think football has the potential to open up significantly. There's a whole world out there. We got back in the day when I was a lad, like Africans, like there weren't many African players around. Like half the Premier League is either African or like first, second generation African. So I just think that people have got in their head he's an Aussie and he's come from some Mickey Mouse league and he's 57. So all these reasons why he's getting pelters are just really invalid, and they're really narrow-minded, and people are being really ignorant. And let's be honest, we've had 3 years of dire dirge, and all we want is the kind of football that he has proven everywhere he's been is his objective. And it's just he is tactically astute, but it's not that he's got a huge sort of range of ways of doing things, but his way of doing things is to expect the best out of his players and to give them the motivation through his characters. Anyone who can do that job in Celtic has got to have a very strong character, and I think that he can stand up to the job. I think he can, even though he's not worked with players at the level at the top Premier League club like Tottenham. I don't think that that's an issue, to be honest with you. I think
No.
like, we should be taking a punt on him because
Well,
it's a great football
as
to watch. And
as
sorry,
Sai, I know Sai, you mentioned he had this like he's really good at uniting the fans with the
Right.
club, and that's what we
yeah,
need.
Yeah.
And Sai, I think you saying what he did on the
Yeah,
pitch.
I saw the speech that a little bit every champion, every team that's champions, the manager comes on at the end of the season, talks to the home fans on the last home game, and he was talking to a full Parkhead, and basically he was saying all the reasons why we've won, the reason why we're champion is because of this group of players. Yeah, and the crowd went mad. And the reason why this group of players are great because you've got this wonderful captain. Everyone went mad. And the reason why this group of players are successful because of all this backroom staff that were on the pitch. And he didn't go round each of them, but he pointed out the backroom staff, and the crowd went mad. And he said, and the reason why these are successful is because of you. And he said, the reason why I'm successful is because I'm just so bloody lucky. And it's sort of like he plays himself down as a big up to the bigger group, and it felt a little bit like what Pochettino used to do a lot with the with our team, where it was always about the collective. It was always about bringing the team together. It was always that the collective was more important than the individual. Whereas when you then start to go to Mourinho and Conte, it's all about the individual. It's all about their success. When it's successful, it's them. When it's not, it's them. A bit like Frank Lampard does exactly the same because he learned under Mourinho, right? So he uses us and we when we're successful. He uses them when they're not successful. Postecoglou seems to have that ethos that we're in it as one. We're going to win or fail as one, and I'm part of that. I'm not above it. I'm part of it. I just play a different role in the team, but I'm a team member. And I think that combined with the type of football that he plays, I think I would, I'd happily see that down at Spurs. The step up to the bigger league, of course, it's a question because there'll come a point maybe where he can't make that step up, but he's made the step up every time he's tried. So he's gone from non-league in Melbourne to league football in Melbourne to the Australian national team to the K League. He won the K League with I can't remember what team it was, but he won. He won it for the first. They'd won it for the first time in 20 years or something, and then finished runners up. And then he went to Celtic, turned a team round that was in the depths of despair to do a similar thing. Listen, I think that he's got. He would see us as a step up. He would see us as a challenge. I wonder whether, and listening to the Fighting Cock as well, they did a good summary of him the other day. There was a good point made there. Is would he see it as too big a shit show to take over at this time? Would it be a no win situation for him? I'm not sure. But the more that I've seen of him, the more that I've seen interviews of him, and that speech on the pitch, I would just thought I'd love to see that at Tottenham.
I think that in the case of is it too much of a shit show for him? He's 57. I don't think he's going to get that many shots at coming to the Premier League. So I think he'd do it because it could be his one and only chance, um, which perhaps plays in our favor. But the thing that's annoyed me, and I had a discussion earlier with someone in a different group, was he was going on about he's 57, he's not good enough, he's too old. We need a young manager. I'm thinking, he's like, what has he ever done? I'm like, okay, but he's starting in Australia. The fact he's made it all the way here is a huge, huge, hats off to the guy. And as you said, Si, he's been successful everywhere, club level, even Australia, he won the Asian Cup. The guy is a winner with a team ethos. We've had team ethos guys and not one. We've had winners and not one. This is the combination, I mean, let's give it a shot. That's what I think.
I think that the idea of Wonder Kids that is prevalent in, I don't know, a lot of, honestly, mostly game culture, like Football Manager and FIFA. It's like always got to get the youngest guy. I think that's boiling over to management a little bit, and just because someone isn't Frank Lampard or Steven Gerrard, they were managing in the Premier League and at their 30s, 40s. How did they work out? You want any of them at our club? I don't. just because you are like basically gift wrapped a place does not mean that you are all of a sudden a better manager. Postecoglou started in a place where that jump basically never happens, and he's already made it all the way to managing one of the biggest clubs in Scotland, which is no small feat in and of itself. And I mean, obviously there are like managers who work their way up who are young, but that doesn't make them a better manager than Postecoglou.
It's massive bias, isn't it? Like Brendan Rodgers was treated so differently, and he's a terrible example because I hate that man and don't want him near our club, and he's a shit manager in my opinion. He's a good coach, but a crap manager. But anyway, when he was there,
Klopp's 55.
Yeah, he didn't burst onto the scene really. Like he imploded with Dortmund, didn't he? And a lot of people wondered if he was. But when Rodgers went to Celtic, it was like, oh, it rebuilt his whole reputation. Told you this guy could win a trophy. And then with Ange, it's just like, oh, you're too small time. It's partly because he's Australian. That is a large bit of it as well. It's because we don't associate Australian culture with football, and therefore he gets a harsher rap. But on that note, I think we've all discussed it before, but we just need to really shut down from the social media bollocks that some prominent aggregators are pushing, because it's just like they're trying to force so much that every manager's rejecting Spurs. No one has rejected us. Like, we haven't given an offer to anyone. The only one to walk away is Slot, but we didn't even put a contract on the table. We were clearly interested, and I believe that we were definitely interested in him. But it seems like he just leveraged that because he wanted to stay at Feyenoord to get himself a better deal. So, it is what it is. Go on, sorry, Johnny.
The other thing, like talking about age and so on, I mean, it's not as if they're like... I think it was Sarah just said there about the age of Klopp. I mean, talking about the nationality thing. England is the home of football, right? And that's where the rule book was written. Like, tell me the last English manager. How long was it since the last English manager won the Premier League? And Eddie Howe is the best. I think it's the highest finishing for an English manager in 20 years or something like I heard the other day. Maybe that's wrong, but I think that probably is correct. And that's English managers, okay? So we finish higher than third in the last 20 years, and we're Tottenham. So I think for an Australian to do that, it is very much biased against nationality, and he has done really well on that basis. And like, isn't like Joe Biden like fucking 79 or something like that? I mean,
no,
and it is
also
not a great comparison.
No, I know, but like, sorry, we're not going to point a 57-year-old. Like, do me a favor. Like 57, that is not old. Like, seriously, it is not old. And just because you're young doesn't mean that you've got like all the new ideas. It's not like old people. Like, I'm 50, okay, so like he's older than
Johnny's
me.
insecurities just coming out now. Hit 50, and now he's just like,
old. Yeah.
50's the new 30.
He's not old though, really. Like, I mean, in terms of like your cognitive ability and your ability to learn, like if you're passionate about something, like it's the person. It's like I'm younger than I was like 15 years ago, probably, in like lots of ways, like my outlook, my mentality and stuff. So like we evolve as humans, right? And I think that Ange's like energy is probably not like your typical 57-year-old,
He's still got some. He's getting those testosterone top ups, is he, Johnny? He's getting those testosterone jabs to top him up, is he, on the weekend?
Yeah, so exactly.
And his size
I think.
Oh, go on. Sorry.
Sorry to say one thing about the age, and no one's managed at a top level. You look at the age. I think we appointed Martin Jol, who was almost 50 when he took over, had coached nobodies in the Dutch league. And he was one of our more successful managers. He was the one that kind of took us from middle table to actually almost the brink of the Champions League. I think we need to stop being such snobs about names and pedigree and the rest of it, and just look at what is their philosophy. What have they actually done? And judge it on that, rather than, the same thing with our players. We used to buy young, promising players, and that crop took us up to second and third in the league and Champions League final. Since then, we spent a fortune on big-name players who've all flopped. Let's go back and look at who fits. Is it the right fit? Yes, no, and move forward.
Yeah, I think the point you make there as well, like the players that you get in, and I was saying before about like in Celtic, all these Japanese dudes play for Celtic now. Like, it just show like there is a lot of like untapped pool of talent. I mean, there has to be like it's the world game, you know. And I just think that there was another point I was going to make. Completely forgotten what it was, but like I think we just are so narrow-minded, and it's just because people need to open up. Like, oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, just talking about the age of managers again. You made the point about Martin Yall, and you made the point about names. So Mourinho didn't work out, and obviously Conte didn't work out. Like AVB was supposed to be kind of maybe like somebody with ideas and younger and energetic, and that didn't really work out. Harry Redknapp's probably our other best manager in the last 20 years outside of Pochettino, you know, and obviously he's been around for quite a bit, and he came in, brought us into the Champions League. Like, who are the managers we've actually brought in the last 20, 25 years who the fans have actually really wanted, who've actually succeeded? Like, there isn't any of them. And none of the ones that the fans wanted actually became successful.
No. Sorry, I've got to rush it along a bit, Johnny, because I've got to finish up in 1 minute. I'm a bit over. I've got to go. But I think I just wanted to make sure I got his comment in because it was a really good one. I've been itching to get it out there. So Klopp 55, Poch 51, Pep 52, Ten Hag 53, Jose 60. So if
Jose might not be the best example to pull because he is a dinosaur.
I get the point.
Tactics.
So even if you take out the ones that have won, Poch hasn't done much more than Postecoglou. Ten Hag hasn't done. Okay, he's had the time at Ajax, but he's had that one. He's had that one go at Ajax, and he hasn't done much more than that. And they're there or thereabouts in terms of age as Postecoglou. So the age thing's a load of bollocks.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, so I've got to wrap up there, but boys, it was good to chat, and I would also finish on everyone's frustrated about the director of football thing. I agree. We haven't got someone in mid-June. It is an issue then, but there is still a bit of time. And would you rather we just rushed into it like Liverpool, who have apparently appointed the German Bundesliga fans call him he's an Alan Pardew character is what he's been called. He's an absolute joke of an appointment, apparently. And if we had signed him, I'm sure there'd be absolute uproar. But it's hard to get these people, as I think Jay was saying in our WhatsApp group as well. Like, look at where Klopp was sacked when Liverpool got him. Pep was available, walked out of Barcelona when City got him. Chelsea got a free agent in Poch. Like, there's this perception that every other big club just goes up to smaller clubs and just takes their managers, and we should just walk into Brighton and just grab them. That doesn't actually seem to happen anymore. That's just not normal. So it is really tough. And if we cock it up, it is on our board, and ENIC, because it is a bit of a last chance saloon for most of us, including myself. But we've got to give them a couple of weeks after the season's closed to get it in place before we all lose our shit. Otherwise, we're just making the problem worse ourselves. But anyway, boys, lovely to catch up. Any final comments before we wrap up?
If we hire a manager before we hire a director of football, I will be disappointed with one exception. And I will not say who the exception is, but you know who the exception is.
He likes skateboards. He's German.
What?
Who?
Big Sam's free, is he?
Big Sam is another one. Yeah.
How did you know?
Aladici.
Right. Up the Spurs, boys. I'll catch you next time.
Go on, you Spurs.
Get on your Spurs.